You know, I can understand how some people feel about the current direction that WWE is going in. Some people feel there are some positiveness, coming out of WWE, and sometimes, like I said, sometimes there's some positiveness that they see coming out of WWE, and then sometimes there's some, you know, negativeness coming out of WWE that they don't like. I mean, the few positive things that they like are one, you have NXT. And apparently, in the eyes of a lot of fans, NXT is a lot better sometimes than what you see on Raw and SmackDown. And obviously, I can attest to say this, that it is indeed true. There's a lot of what you see on NXT is better than what you see on SmackDown and what you see on Raw. And I'm a guy that tries to watch Raw as much as I can, or at least keep up with it, as well as keep up with what's going on SmackDown, especially when I'm working. But like I said, apparently people prefer NXT over what they see on Raw and SmackDown, because basically NXT is like WWE's answer to Ring of Honor. I mean, if you're just a pure pro wrestling fan and you want pure pro wrestling, here's where you watch it on a national level. But as much as you have the positiveness with NXT, as much as you have the positiveness now with the structure of some of their super cards, if you will, some of the main pay-per-view cards where you actually have a full card with every match having a reasoning and a meaning behind it, that's another positive to look at. And then sometimes, like lately, you've been finally giving certain superstars, the ball, and you're letting them run with it in a sense by letting them kind of expand their characters and letting them do things that normally when you would watch these people, as much as you appreciate what they do in the ring, you don't see really much besides that. And now you're letting them expand on that. And that's another positive as well. But then again, with the positives comes the negatives. And some of the negatives are exactly how things are booked and written. The way certain segments are booked sometimes can be positive and they can be negative. And the way they're written, though, but the way they're written sometimes can also affect whether or not they're positive or negative. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. You see, you take the whole John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman deal. You take that whole situation. And as good as it's being booked in certain areas that needs to be on the show, as good as WWE is trying to book it in certain areas where they know they'll at least get some people viewing in, the way it's being written doesn't help the booking. You could book it in a very favorable spot. You could do that, but you can't. But as good as the booking is, it cannot save it. As good as the booking may be, that cannot on its own save a segment, even if it's in a good position, if the writing behind it doesn't work. You see, a lot of people, when it comes to WWE's writing, its scripting, if you will, they blame certain individuals, and sometimes these individuals deserve the blame. Some people feel that with Stephanie McMahon sort of involved with the creative process, which I don't know if she is still or not, which I still don't know if she is or not, and if she is, that doesn't really help. Because from what I understand, Triple H is part of the creative process, and if Triple H is part of it, you'd think he would have more say of what needs to be done. But then again, you have Stephanie in his ears, and that, doesn't help much. But still, depending on who takes the blame behind the creative writing, a lot of people, a lot of fans a lot of fans are justified in how they see that writing going. Sometimes the writing itself can be good. It can be, but then sometimes it cannot be. When it comes to John Cena and Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, a lot of fans will credit Paul Heyman because of the fact that he is, despite what he's given to work with, that he can make what he's given work. And he can even improvise and ad-lib if he has to. John Cena, on the other hand, he doesn't, he's one of those guys that doesn't really need to be scripted, but when he does, he too, if the situation is right, whether you like the guy or not, can deliver. He can, make it work, and like some, can ad-lib if he has to. He can improvise as well. That's one thing you do have to respect about Cena, that despite the fact that every time he talks or does a promo, it's the same thing over and over and over again, that he's at least saying, well, not saying, but at least he's giving his best, he's giving his best abilities here. He's doing the best job he can. And sometimes that's better than some other people around. And yes, sometimes his situation with Heyman and Lesnar or whoever he faces is always the same promo or speech. And sometimes it's just and sometimes it's just modified to fit the situation or the feud that he's in. And some people can respect that and some people won't respect that because it's basically the same John Cena stuff they've heard for years and years and years. I mean, all these people ever really want when it comes to John Cena being written and booked the way he is they want John Cena to finally come out. I mean, I guarantee you this, folks. A lot of people can respect the fact that John Cena is one of the better promo guys out in the WWE and one of the guys that doesn't really need a script or anything to talk. He's just out there is allowed to be himself and say what he wants to say. And if he needs to be scripted, it's not that much of a script, like I said, and he can improvise with what he's given and then sometimes ad-lib, if not just be himself for a majority of the time. And fans can respect that, and fans do, and like I said, some fans won't. But I think what would make those that don't respect him, even if he's one of the best promo talkers in the WWE today, what would make them respect him and what would make the disrespect turn into respect, easy for me to say, but what would make the disrespect for him turn into respect is if he, even if he stays the way he is, comes out and says, hey, all of you that don't support me, beep you. And I guarantee you, if he was to say that to those that disrespect him, all of a sudden the respect would come up. That's right. Just because he would tell those that would disrespect him in a promo, either it's written in or he's just allowed to finally say it, that disrespect would turn into respect. Those boos would turn into cheers because they'd be like, yeah, that's the John Cena we want to hear. Yeah. It's like I said before in a video, I think it was audio video, on camera video, I don't know. But it's like I said before, there's no satisfying anybody when it comes to wrestling. It's almost like you need to have their hero written in. You need to write in a segment for the hero, for the face of the hero of the company to come out and tell those that don't respect them, hey, screw you, up yours. And all of a sudden that gets them cheered. And that's what's crazy. You get it? That's what's kind of crazy. It's like, it's like you can't really satisfy anybody when it comes to even the writing. Now, the other negative, of course, when it comes to sometimes the booking in the writing is the feuds and storylines themselves. You have a situation right now with Brie and Nikki. Both now have separate music, both on different sides of the fence. But it all centers around one thing, the situation with Stephanie McMahon. And people don't like it. People don't like it because of the fact that it's going to center around Stephanie all the time. You can have Brie versus Nikki. You can have Nikki probably go on and become Divas champion and do a Brie versus Nikki feud for the belt. If they want to do that, which I don't think they will. You can have all this happen, and it's not going to save this feud or the the booking of this feud or the direction of this feud, if the story line doesn't make sense, if the writing doesn't make sense, and of course in the eyes of fans, the most negative aspect of it is if the acting doesn't make sense or doesn't work. I mean, I've said this before and I'll say this again. Again, I don't know if I've said this before, but if I have, I'll say it again. Stephanie McMahon versus Brie Bella 2 is going to happen because that's all this whole Brie Nikki thing is. You're going to have a match between Brie and Nikki, whether Nikki's champion or not, and you're going to have a stipulation to where if Brie beats Nikki, Brie gets another match with Stephanie at another pay-per-view, which could be Hell in a Cell or Survivor Series or wherever that is, and Brie's going to end up getting her revenge over Stephanie in that match. That's basically what this is. I mean, it's so simple. It's so simple to figure that out, and yet the negative perspective of this from the fans' views and even some insiders' views is you're constantly just trying to shove this whole Bella feud down our throats all because of what? Total Divas? If that's the case, why can't you give the feud between Cameron and Naomi some time? Why can't you make it important? Why can't you put it on the level of Nikki and Brie? I don't understand that. I don't get that. Why can't you do it with them? Why can't you put a situation where you have Summer and Layla, focus on their team, put their team at a higher level? Why can't you do something with Natty and Rosa? It's like, I mean, they're all part of Total Divas, right? So why can't somebody in the back write up a program for all these divas and focus and feature them? It's because that's the negative aspect that fans look at. You're booking basically the faces of Total Divas, and yet you're not giving the other Total Divas any equal time. And that's not fair. And that's how fans look at it. You may have over 1 million viewers, make Total Divas the highest rated show at times on E! Network, but it doesn't mean crap in the long run unless all the other divas are given equal time and equal opportunities. And that's another negative aspect fans see with the WWE, is those situations. Not just with the divas, but with the superstars. Why do you think they always chant yes? Why do you think they always chant CM Punk, even though he's not there anymore? Why do you think they chant for Rollins, Ambrose, and even at times Reigns? Why do you think they get behind Neville when he showed up on Raw for that one match, and maybe more so down the line? Why do you think they chant ole, ole, ole for Zany, for Sam Zaney? Why do you think they do that? It's because this is what they want. They want these guys, along with guys like Ziggler, if you will, along with guys like the Usos, Cody Rhodes, Stardust, if you will, Bray Wyatt. They want all these guys to be in the spotlight. They want these guys to be focused on, and they want the others that have had the multiple opportunities, like a Cena, like a Lesnar, like an Orton, like a Big Show, like a Sheamus. They want them all to stand aside and say, stand aside and let these guys, along with a Cesaro, if you will, to come in and basically show them how real wrestling is done. That, in the eyes of many fans, is the biggest negative that the WWE has that needs to be turned into a positive. But it's not being done so because because the booking, whoever's in charge of the booking team and the creative writing team, is not letting it happen. And probably one of the biggest negative among all is the error that they're in. Yes, because of the WWE Network, they're trying to at least be a little bit more edgy, a little bit more risque, if you will. Even though they're still, described and still distributed as a PG kid-friendly product, fans still look at it as a negative. Still look at it very negatively, like you need to get away from that kid-friendliness and go back to what made you who you are. Or at least be more edgy. At least say, okay, this is a TV PG LSV product, not a TV PGV product. That's what they want, and yet they're not getting it. And that's why they feel this is one of the biggest negatives they feel needs to be turned into a positive, along with everything else I've mentioned. So even though you have the goods, right now the negatives are outweighing the goods. And why some of those negatives, especially for the fact that WWE's in the situation it's in right now, is because, and I've talked about this, and I know a lot of other people agree about this, is the fact that WWE's in a situation right now where they can't really do much because of the sponsorships, because of the partnerships they have with outside organizations. That's the reason. And because of those partnerships and sponsorships, they've had to make a promise that, hey, if you team with us, or if you partner with us, or if you sponsor us, we promise never to go back to what we were. All because of that. And that's one of the biggest, if not the biggest negative fans see. And that is the one big negative that basically outweighs any positiveness that WWE has right now. So that's all I'm going to say on the positives and negatives, or the negatives and positives of the WWE's current product. Let me know what you guys think and if you agree, and I'll talk to y'all later.